Hello and welcome back to Coin Matters channel. Attorney Jeremy Hogan pointing out a major issue that, to be frank, hasn't been so heavily discussed up to this point but could have extreme consequences for the future of the entire crypto asset class. And from the perspective of the law. As for why this isn't more of a significant concern in the Ripple instance, well, I have a notion as to why that isn't the case. Now, at the very beginning of the clip, is a good time to get to that. Here then is Jeremy Hogan's legal opinion. He tweeted it out. Crypto lawsuit will likely revolve around the major questions theory. Since it is relatively new, Ripple could not take advantage of it, but Coinbase and Binance could. Yes. To that end, I'd be interested in hearing more from Attorney Hogan on the reasoning behind his not available for Ripple statement. I've touched on the major questions doctrine before, but it's been a while since I last discussed it here on the channel. It must have been, since I can't recall the last time I mentioned it. Also, in terms of being unavailable to Ripple, the possibility of an appeal in this case has me curious. Isn't that something that would be discussed? And I'll explain what the big questions are about doctrine right at the start of the video. I know you're confused now, but wait until I explain the meaning, then you'll be doing audible sign language and palming your face and rolling your eyes the whole time. Because the current state of cryptography is an excellent illustration of the major questions doctrine. In light of this, the SEC shouldn't be doing anything. But before we go any further, I should state that I have no training in law or finance. Nothing I say or write should be taken as recommendations to purchase or sell any particular security. Just a hobbyist here that occasionally posts films to YouTube on various crypto-related topics. In that case, what did Attorney Jeremy Hogan mean? Frank Shapiro, who contributes to the block, was recently on a podcast, and what he said was in response to what I'm about to tell you. The block's editor-at-large is pictured here. Then he spoke with J.W. Verrett. Now, J.W. Verrett had a close working relationship with Gary Gensler, among other people. It's not like he worked there or anything. He served on an SEC advisory panel. So he was in close contact with Gensler. And he has spoken out strongly against Gary Gensler and his methods. J.W. is a law professor at George Mason University. So, Frank Shapiro shared a snippet from this episode and wrote the following about it. The Scoop was joined by J.W. Verrett. So that's the podcast where I try to make sense of the SEC's lawsuits against Binance and Coinbase by referencing the major questions doctrine and why it could matter. It may take years, but eventually a court may rule that the agency lacks the authority to regulate cryptocurrencies. Please have fun watching the show. And so I did take the time to transcribe the relevant part that you see before you, and I think by the end of this you'll see that the SEC really doesn't have a leg to stand on if you consider the major questions doctrine, which does seem like what the go-to should be today. The SEC's reprehensible attempt to expand its jurisdiction is just one more example of why it will fail. In my opinion, that is the most likely outcome. Here is a quote I transcribed from JW's original handwriting. Barrett. His words were as follows. Basically, the concept. I'm truly sorry about it. This was initially posed by Frank Shapiro, who questioned, quote, explain to us why the doctrine of the major questions is so vital. Here's what J.W. Barrett had to say, and there he is on your screen. According to J.W. Barrett, the idea is that if an agency wants to regulate something that is of significant national, economic, or political importance, but Congress has not given it specific authority to do so, the agency must first seek authorization from Congress. So, hold that thought. Doesn't crypto in particular readily, obviously, and unavoidably fit into such a category? Even more so, when was the last time a completely new type of financial asset was developed? I just don't recall it. Years ago, I did investigate this more. For whatever reason, I haven't given it much thought lately. In other words, within the last several hundred years. Memories come to mind. Again, I'll need to consult Google. It feels like ages ago. You could say it's been a while. This asset class has been around for a total of 14 years. Even though it's still in its infancy, this asset class is now valued more than $1 trillion. To sum up, this is not a particularly sizable investment category. A few years ago, it would have exploded to $3 trillion. It might be worth tens of trillions of dollars in the not-too-distant future. Obviously, people all around the world are adopting it. This is not a purely American phenomenon. And so, even if the US were to succeed in outlawing it completely in the US, which isn't in the cards, don't get me wrong, it's a hypothetical. Even if they succeeded, it wouldn't be resolved. That means the economy as a whole would see a significant impact. Even if the United States could or would do so, it would still be a major economic worry, and that's assuming the country is capable of doing so. According to J.W. Verrett's Important Questions Doctrine, which is at issue here, you must consult with Congress on any issue of national economic or political importance, and this case certainly falls into the latter category. This is exactly it. He then gives a couple other situations in which it was applied. A situation in which the FDA has said, you know what? Nicotine is a drug, so cigarettes will be regulated as such. To control the drug market is within our purview. As a result, the plan is effective. And the High Court ruled that wasn't what was meant by drugs. They weren't referring to nicotine or tobacco products. Therefore, you lack the legal standing to control cigarette sales. Now, here's something to ponder. In this case, the major, large questions doctrine was put to use in the actual world. And that has a negligible amount of economic significance compared to crypto. And it was still relevant there, if only for the FDA's regulation of cigarettes. The FDA was hit with a heavy blow. There's no denying crypto's stronger economic impact. I mean, seriously? In light of that, you can see that this is merely another thing where, of course, you must now wait for its inevitable outcome. However, it is a genuine phenomenon in our country. He then says, and then J.W. continues. They reiterated that they did not refer to tobacco products. Therefore, you lack the legal standing to control cigarette sales. A lot of what he says is similar to the Howey test, which can be applied to digital assets that exist fully on a distributed ledger system like the blockchain. A ruling on this issue is unlikely to come from a judge until at least the Second Circuit or, more likely, SCOTUS, the legal term for the United States Supreme Court. However, it is undeniably a factor that casts a shadow over such cases. Furthermore, if the lack of an investment contract in the SEC versus Ripple case and the fact that XRP fails the Howey test weren't already enough, this should be. If we're talking about the major question doctrine, you can still argue that this disproves it. However, I'm still confused about why Attorney Hogan said this isn't a case for repo. The question is how it was worded on the screen. And from what I gathered, it was still possible, but at a more advanced level. Thus, perhaps I'm overlooking something. The attorney is not me. Anyway, the whizzed by Attorney Hogan. So, I'm not trying to discount what he said, I'm just pointing out that I used to think that this sort of thing might have been raised even for Ripple if you went to a higher level of court. If we get there, perhaps there's a reason I don't know about why it can't happen. In any event, he's making it clear that other cryptocurrency exchanges like Coinbase and Binance have his full support. Check out the major questions theory. It has that much of an impact. That's why the SEC's actions here are so reprehensible. And so, once more, this is something I haven't discussed on the channel in a very long time. The concept was by J.W. Barrett, and Attorney Hogan here brought it to light. I figured, okay, let's spend a few minutes discussing this and dissecting it a bit. No, I don't give out financial advice. My words here should not be used as a basis for making any financial transactions. Please like and subscribe my channel. See you later, bye.